Hey, I'm back. There's no excuse for how long I procrastinated doing this, but I'm gonna give you an update. It has been a while, long enough that the fuzz has finally grown out, and you may notice a bit more color in my ponytail this time, because, I went to Dollarama and I found really cheap Dollarama hair color, which is actually really great. Like, I colored my hair a couple weeks ago, and it's still really colored, and it's called semi-permanent, which I personally think of as either the I washed it twice and now it's gone color, or the it said it'll come out in 10 washes, why isn't it out in 10 washes? Ah! And then your mom starts asking, was it permanent? And it's like, now what? Oh, for me, there's no consequences because, my mom isn't worried about my hair color. But that's good, but it's actually faded a lot. It actually started out like I used pinks, purples, and greens. And it was really cool. Like, this part was like all green, like when I put it down like this. Here, let me just. Oof. Like, this entire part, like, all of this was covered in green. The only part that actually showed a bit of pink was underneath, like right here, which is almost completely faded out. And now the pink's just kind of all that's left, and it's actually not that bad. I really like it personally. I love the color it's at, and it keeps getting better and better every day, except it's almost washed out now, and it's also getting pretty long. Don't know what to do about that. But yeah, so things have been good. Last you saw me, as I recall, I was house sitting at my partner Brienne's parents' place, which was pretty good. Cut off a bit early because their parents decided that camping was too hard. So they came home a bit early. Uh, Imagine the cleaning frenzy. Thank goodness they were in California, so we had a couple days of notice. Oh, thank goodness. But so that went well, and then believe it or not, within a couple weeks after that, we were house sitting at my mom's while my family, my mom, my dad, and my two brothers were all going out to Saskatchewan, North Battleford, to see my grandmother, who hasn't been exactly the best, but she was a bit better enough for them to see them. And while I was house sitting the last night, and house sitting was great. Like, I got to spend time with the dog and the cat. It was really nice and calm. It was a week, and it was a really great break from general life. And the cupboards were so full. I had so many options. I ate so much Kraft dinner and alpaghetti. It's kind of shameful, but it was also kind of great because the entire time I was there, my belly was full. It was awesome. I feasted. But the last night I was there, I and and since I'd gotten there, I was experiencing abdominal pains, and it wasn't from the eating, I assure you, because like my eating patterns have changed in the last bit, and the pain hasn't really. But I got pain really badly in my lower abdomen, and like I'm pretty sure it wasn't my existing condition with ovaries, because my ovaries are really suckish, and my appendix, pretty sure it wasn't that, but it was like it was bad. Basically, it was sitting at a 6 or a 7 on a scale of 1 to 10, and I've done post-op without painkillers. I'm familiar with pain, and it spikes up to 8s and 9.5s. Like, I'm saving the 10 for, like, actually dying. Like, I, I, I don't, I don't think I've ever seen the 10. Hopefully, at least. But it got so bad that I walked over to the neighbors, and I was gonna ask them, hey, can you give me a ride? The girls that were there said, hey, our parents are asleep, and I'm like, either they're out of the house or they are actually asleep. Either way, unavailable, so I called an ambulance. I have insurance, so don't worry, I'm not out of $500. Oh, just wait. So I call the ambulance, they get there, and they stick an IV in me right away. Oh my gosh, the number of pricks I have in my arms, actually. And they stick me with an IV right away, which is actually pretty great. And they start giving me painkillers, which really helped. Like, they were not very long-lasting painkillers, so the doctors would be able to see how I actually was. But it was, I think, fentanyl, which I asked about because I've seen the word fentanyl thrown around on friggin' bus stops, this scary drug will kill you, but apparently it's because people take it in dangerously high doses from patches that are supposed to be long release. So I really nice EMTs. I have so much respect for EMTs for paramedics, like, they, like, when they picked me up from my mom's place, they were so nice and so helpful and really, really compassionate. Um, they made it a lot easier. They made me comfortable, made me not scared to be in the hospital, which it's been a long time since I wasn't scared to go to a hospital. And it was a nice feeling, and they made me feel safe. And I got into bed right away because it was like almost 1 in the morning. Or, no, 10-ish. I don't know. It was dark out, so, and it's Canada, so it was at least after 10. But yeah, I get to the hospital, they put me through a CT scan, an x-ray, they check out my organs, they're like, okay, we're looking for kidney stones, there's no kidney stones, so bye. And they threw a prescription of T3s at me, even though I told them they don't quite work for me, they don't last. They work for like half an hour, and like they work okay for half an hour. Like, the pain's up here, it brings it down to here, this is no pain, so like it holds me here for a bit, and then it just drops after half an hour, and it really sucks. But they threw that prescription at me. My grandma was there by then. She came to join me at the hospital, and we filled it out on the way home at the first, there was a love, at the first 24-hour Shoppers we could find, as well as I got some snacks, because I'd just been through a lot of pain and a lot of stress, so I was getting snacks. And, like, they dosed me with morphine. They stuck morphine into the IV, and they did blood tests and had me pee in a cup and everything. But, like, they had dosed me with morphine an hour before they discharged me. And then, and the nurse, I asked, when will it wear off? And they're like, it lasts for about 2 hours. So I was like, okay. And then an hour later, the doctor comes in, okay, we didn't find kidney stones, sending you home. And I was like, okay, but there's also these other symptoms that I've been having lately, like discomfort when doing certain things, and okay, not like that, but like discomfort moving, pain kind of reaching up towards the kidneys really sucked, and I was like, have you looked at these other things? And he kind of ignored my question, said, it's not kidney stones, so I'm sending you home. And then the nurse comes in with a prescription for T3s, and I'm like, these don't really work. Also, have you guys at least considered this thing? And she totally Donald Trumped it. Like, here's the question. They come at the question, and they go out of their way to give you a complex answer that completely avoids the question. And you see Donald Trump doing this all the time. Like, how do you feel about foreign policy? Well, I know about foreign policy. If anyone knows about foreign policy, it's me. I mean, I have international companies, so of course I know about foreign policy. I'm good at this. I'm very rich. I'm very powerful. I'm good at foreign policy. I know about foreign policy. You can trust me on this. I have a firm stance on foreign policy. And that's it. And you're like, well, you didn't give me an answer. She kind of did a bit of that to get away from the question, but I got the T3s filled out anyway. Unfortunately, I can't swallow pills. Lately, I found a way around that, and I'll explain later, but like, oh god, this is going to be longer than I thought. Sorry, but I couldn't swallow pills. Basically, unless the pain got to a breaking point of an 8 or higher, only then would I be able to push myself to take a pill. But, so they sent me home, I went back to my mom's place, and even though my parents weren't supposed to leave until the following morning, they left that night when the neighbors saw me. One neighbor was driving by my house and saw the paramedics. They messaged me immediately, like, Beck, what's going on? And then the neighbor who I'd asked for help from messaged my mom, and they were like, hey, are you home? And my mom was like, no, we're out of town. Okay. Beck came by my place and was asking. My mom messaged me. Well, I was still in the ambulance, like, and she called me, are you okay? And I'm like, okay, hi, I didn't intend for you to know about this so soon. I told her that I was okay, and that was when the painkillers were beginning to work, so I was very okay. Thankfully, my mom hadn't called 15 minutes earlier because I was not in the best place, but I was okay. And then we came back here because I'm home now, and we're here for a few days, and then the pain came back to the point where it was about just almost like a sliver below where it was before I'd called the ambulance at my mom's place. So I called the ambulance, they showed up really fast. They sent me an ambulance and a car, and I had a friend over, and my friend Christian and stuff, and like, and I had him follow me in the car, because like, I'm not going to the hospital alone, that's terrifying, like, especially since they kind of just, okay, bye. before I was like, nah, I'm not doing this alone. I'm not speaking only for myself. I'm gonna have someone who will get upset if they try to get me out of here without doing the best that they can to figure out what's wrong with me and how to keep the pain from coming back. Like, I wasn't going to let myself be ignored again, and I was really scared of going alone. And the ambulance came this time, and they took me back to the same hospital, which is now on the other side of the city, because I live in the north end, my mom's south of the city, so the hospital's like on the south end of the city. So, woo. When you're in pain and you're bouncing on the stretcher, I had to ask to lay down in the stretcher. Like, he told me I was going to lay down in the stretcher when I got in the ambulance, and they were like, no, sit in the chair. And I'm like, what? Okay. And they took my blood pressure, and they were going to start moving, and I got scared. Like, can I lay down? And he's like, do you want to? And I'm like, yes, it'll hurt less. It will hurt so much less. And I start freaking out. He's like, okay. Then you can lay down, and you strap me in, and it's very amicable. They offered me the T3s that I had filled out, but I was like, no, I can't swallow them. So we rode, and it was a painful ride because bouncing and organs hurting. Ugh. I get to the hospital, and they mashed up a T3 into freaking applesauce so that I can consume it. And oh my goodness, does that taste terrible. If you can avoid mashing up a T3 into anything, do it. Like, just, ugh, it was terrible. It was so gross, and there was chunks, and it was icky. I was able to swallow it, because I was able to tell my brain, I'm just eating applesauce for the, 2 seconds it takes to get it down my throat, which was a lot easier. And that gave me ideas for later, and I'll tell you. But my friend was sitting in the waiting room waiting for me and stuff. And but instead of last time, where I got out of bed right away, this was in the middle of the day. So they had me put me in a wheelchair and put me in the waiting room, and the EMTs went. So and so I was sitting there in the waiting room for a couple hours, in pain, because the T3 wore off relatively fast. Turned out I wasn't allowed to drink water or eat food, and I was really hungry. And they told me, while I was behind, still in the area, we're going to give you some water and have you pee in a cup. And they did none of that. And even when I sent my friend Christian to ask behind the desk, hey, can this person have some water? And they're like, well, because of your abdominal pain, you can't. No water. And I was so tempted to, roll myself up there and be like, hey, you guys said you were going to give me at least water and have me pee in a cup. What the heck? It was the same nurse. The same nurse that was behind the desk, who was within earshot, of the conversation. So I was really peeved, and I wasn't very confident in the healthcare system at that moment. And I was sitting there in a lot of pain, because it came and it went, and it came and it went, and I gently cried when it came, and I recovered when it went. It really sucked. And then my partner Brienne came over on the bus, because she'd been in the bathroom when the EMTs were there, and it was kind of just in, out, go, when Christian, had to hurry to his car, throw the T3s at the EMTs, and follow. So, but then I get in, they get me a bed, finally, and I sit there, and they tell me to get in a gown, and that when the urge to pee hits me, they let me have water, finally. And I kind of, while the nurse was wheeling me into the back, I started freaking out, and I started breaking down, I'm so scared. I don't want to be brushed off. I don't want to be ignored. I don't want to be pushed out as if you're looking for beds, even though there was a bed empty next to me. I don't want to be ignored, and I don't want my pain to be invalidated, because, maybe one of the reasons they only throw T3s at me, even though I'd mentioned, they don't really work, was, and my friends mentioned this, maybe they think you're just here to get some hard drugs, and here to lie about pain. And I told this to the nurse, and I was like, I'm so scared that you'll invalidate how I'm feeling and invalidate my pain, and that I won't get any proper treatment or care, or that I won't get anything to help me. And I was on, the verge of tears saying this to the nurse, and she gets me into the room, and she's like, okay, we're not going to invalidate your pain. I'll make sure that you're taken care of, or something like that. And that, really put me at ease. I was so stressed and scared, because I didn't want to be sent home. Because when they sent me home, and I told them, what if the pain comes back and the T3s don't work? And they're like, well, if it gets unbearable, come back here. And I'm like, but the morphine hasn't even worn off yet, the first time. The only reason I'm not in agony is because the morphine is working. You're throwing me out of here, and you know that I'm going to be hurting again. I said this in much gentler terms, and she was like, if it gets unbearable, come back. Basically, shush, go. And And I was so scared of that happening again because I don't want to go to the hospital for severe life-threatening pain, because when it gets that bad and your body's telling you you're dying, that's so hard to cope with, because then you're convinced you're dying even though you know you're probably not. Maybe you don't know if it's cancer or something. You don't know. I didn't know. They just said it's not kidney stones, so we're pushing you out. So, and I expressed these fears to the nurse, and I was really scared. She put me at ease a little bit. And I'm sitting there, and then I have to pee because I just chugged this water, and I haven't been to pee in like 8 hours. So I push the call button, and she says if you get the urge, push the call button. And I push the call button. 5 minutes later, push, hold, and I was like, I wasn't gonna push it 3 times because what if it was an irritating ding? They couldn't do anything about it, right? I wasn't gonna be a dick. But then then the nurse, then the doctor comes in, right? He taps on my door, and I'm sitting there in the gown, all wrapped up in a blanket because I'm a bit cold. And he comes in, and he's like, "Hey," and he points out, "Okay, so I looked at your tests before. You're completely clean, no tumors, no stones, no nothing. And basically, we've done all the tests that we can. There's no infections, nothing like that, or at least I think. There's nothing wrong with you that we can see, and unless we can fix it, we have to send you out." But then he asked me, like, "Do you know what could help you, what could work, since T3s don't? Like, how could I help you?" And I was like, "Well, I know that Advil and Tylenol don't work because I used to use them really heavily for things like period cramps or pain while working, because I worked myself really hard last summer. It really sucked. I took so many painkillers. So I had a tolerance." And he said, "Okay, how about Percocets?" And I'm like, and my brain's like, "I've heard of those. This is supposed to be good, effective." And so I was like, "Okay, yeah, sure." And he writes me up a prescription for 30, where the doctor before had given me a prescription for 20 T3s, even though he knew it was 12 days until my next doctor's appointment, which is in 2 days, because they said follow up with your family doctor. And I was like, "Okay, I got 12 days. Can you make me covered for that?" And the guy gave me 30 Percocets, and I tell you, they're effective. And on the way home, because Christian drove me and Brianne home, thank goodness. Actually, Brianne and I went to a McDonald's because I was so hungry, and we grabbed some food first. Then we hit a Shoppers, filled the Percocets, grabbed some Nutella because I figured, well, if it's mixed with or covered in something, then I can get it down my throat and not freak out and not feel like puking. So we bought Nutella. Nutella and some snacks to, again, help me reconcile the stressful experience. And, but yeah, and then we headed home, and I tried, basically taking a scoop of Nutella, putting the T3 in the middle of it, wrapping it in Nutella, then taking a mouthful of the Coke that I still had from McDonald's, taking a sip of that, dropping it into my mouth and swallowing, and I can do that, and that's how I've been taking the Percocets every time the pain comes back. And then I'm going to go to my doctor and talk about the pain and the symptoms and things that have been happening, because stuff's been happening, which is fun. Mostly the pain that kind of scares me, but I'll get that taken care of. 2 days, and that's been fun. In other news, I'm still waiting for Pokemon Go because I live in Canada, even though most of my friends have Android devices, and so they have Pokemon Go, and I'm just like, I want it. But I'm waiting because I'm scared of getting it on the iPhone because it's a lot more tedious. But I'm waiting. It looks like fun. I'm excited. I'll download it the moment it's available. And one last thing is, I'm looking a bit fuzzy on the sides, right? Next time you see me, it's gonna be gone, because actually one of my friends has this device. It's like one of those no-nos. Hold on! Okay. Doing a thing! Okay. Good thing I'm wrapping up. That no-no from those infomercials, right? They have a knockoff called a Yes. And it works, it's great. It's called a Yes. I'm just gonna buzz my hair with that and get the hair gone because it's really warm right now. It's mid-July in Canada, so in Winnipeg, and it's so warm, and it's getting ridiculously humid, so thermoregulation, right? One more minute. So that's basically what's been happening with me. Fun trip to the hospital, but other good things too, so it's going well. I'll do my best to update you in less than a month, at least. Look forward to talking again. Bye.